Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Inside the Mirror podcast. This is episode 101. If you did not have a chance to watch episode 100 with my dad or watch or listen, go back and watch and listen to that, because then you'll have more context on what the heck I'm doing, what is Inside the Mirror podcast, why are we doing Inside the Mirror podcast, what's the goal, all the questions, all the things my dad asked me in episode 100. So go check that out. You can obviously, if you found this episode, you know how to find the last episode. You go watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it wherever you stream podcasts. But episode 100 was excellent in my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased, but it was excellent. I think it gave a lot of context on where we're headed and what we're doing. And so, anyways, episode 101 is here. If you haven't heard episode or watched episode 100, go check it out. But here we are today, episode 101. And today just kind of want to talk about what I'm learning in life. And if you know anything about me or the podcast, that's kind of what I like to do with the podcast, is just share things that I think are helpful or that I'm learning, and or bring on people that I think can be helpful. So anyways, today I just want to talk about like several things. First of all, just the idea that where you're at in life is always preparing you for where you're going in life. But it's really up to you to identify where you're at in life, what you're supposed to be learning. And that is what prepares you for where you're headed. And where you're headed is not always positive or good, depending on how you handle where you're at. It's just like sports. Like when you're in junior high, if you want to be in the NFL or the NBA or play professional sports, what you do in those years prepares you for success or not success. Depending on how you handle that, that's what prepares you for the future. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is how you handle where you're at now determines where you're going to end up later, right? And we all kind of know that in our minds, but we need to bring these things to the front of our minds again and again, and remind ourselves of that. Because if you are not doing things now to prepare yourself for where you're headed, then you're not headed for good things. You're not headed to a good place. What did my friend Joe say recently? He said, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of, you're either preparing for success later, or what you're doing now is preparing you for failure later. You're preparing for success or failure. You're either preparing for success or you're doing nothing, which is preparing to fail. It was something along those lines. Sorry, Joe, I butchered that. Joe's gonna have to come on the podcast because he has some fire quotes and just motivational quotes. But anyway, sorry, Joe. But the idea is that you're either preparing for success now, or you're doing nothing and you're preparing for failure later. So it's pretty binary. You're either doing things that are setting you up well for the future, or you're doing things that are setting you up for failure in the future. That's really the only two options you have. You're either doing something or you're doing nothing. Doing something is setting you up well. Doing nothing is not setting you up well. And that's kind of just where I'm at in my life, is the past few years, or I guess the past 15 years or so, have been preparation for where I'm headed. And here's the thing, and I like to insert this constantly, is success is not linear, right? Like, again, I've said this before. I've made more money 10 years ago than I've made in the past few years, right? So success isn't linear. Now, some of that was my choice to walk away from certain things, but still, success is not linear. But learning and preparation can be linear. Like, even though I've had ups and downs in my income and my finances, and jobs and purpose, and working for others, working for myself, that everything has not been linear, but everything has been linear as far as progression forward. Like, there have been obviously some steps back, but in the macro, everything that's happened to me over the past 10 to 15 years has been preparing me for future success, and current success, right? Like, the things I did 10 years ago set me up for some things I'm succeeding at now. And the things I'm doing now are preparing me to succeed at things 10 years from now, right? So everything has to be constant constantly, you need to be constantly working on where am I at? What should I be learning? And how should I be preparing for the future? What should I be doing now that's preparing me for the future? And I just posted on something on LinkedIn that is kind of a just a simple way to kind of help you in that season, and help me and my dad said this on episode 100. You need to be asking yourself why. What is your why? Why do you wake up and do what you do? Why do you work at the job you work at? Why do you talk in the way you talk to people? Why do you interact in the ways you interact? Is your daily routine the way that it is? Why are you not doing certain things? Why are you doing certain things? Like, knowing why you're doing things drives clarity to where you're headed. If you don't know why you're doing things today, well, then you're not setting yourself up for where you want to be in the future, right? What you do today and why you do it will determine where you're headed. So we need to be asking ourselves constantly, why am I doing this? Or why not? Why am I not doing this, X, Y, or Z, or whatever it is? But again, everything you're doing now is setting you up for the future, good or bad. So again, that's just kind of where I'm at, is just continuously realizing that the things I'm doing now, or the things that I've done in the past, have put me here. The things you did in your past put you where you're at today, right? You're just where you're at in life is just a byproduct of your past decisions. I'm going to say that again. Where you're at in life right now is just a byproduct of your past decisions. The decisions you made in the past put you where you're at today. And the decisions you're making today are going to put you where you're at in the future. So having a grasp and an awareness of that reality, that your decisions, past, present, and future, are determining the next place that you'll be, positive or negative, that's really going to help you on your journey in life, spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever area of your life you want to progress forward in. You have to ask yourself, where am I at? Why am I doing the things I'm doing? And how is that tracking to put me on track for what I want in the future? If you don't have my dad said this before, have a plan and work the plan. And if you have no plan, plan to fail. And that's just the reality of it. If you have no plan, plan to fail. So this is a quick one, not super just mind-boggling, mind-blowing. I think we're all kind of aware of this, but you need to be aware of where you're at, and where you're headed, and what are you doing now that's preparing you for where you're headed. And ask yourself that question: why am I doing the things I'm doing? Where am I headed? What does that look like? And what do I need to be doing now to make sure that happens? Again, if you're doing nothing, you're setting yourself up to fail. If you're not aware of what you're doing currently and why it's important, then what you're not doing is setting yourself up to fail, or what you are doing is setting yourself up to fail by what you're not doing. If that all made sense. So anyways, I just wanted to pop in. Episode 101 is light and breezy. Episode 100 was meaty. And again, if you haven't listened to or watched episode 100, please go back and do so. Just so you can have full context on me and the podcast, if you're new and listening, or if you just need a refresher on what's Kyle doing with this thing, what's the goal, where's he headed, what is he doing, why is he doing it. Again, this podcast is a good example of what I'm talking about. Is I'm setting myself up now for where the podcast is going to be in the future, and where I'm going to be with the podcast in the future. But you have to be working now to set yourself up for the future. You don't get to arrive where you want in the future without doing the things now that are required. So make sure that you're doing the things now that are required to get to where you want to be in the future. The future doesn't just pop up the way you want it to be without work now. So anyways, I love you guys. Do the work now and set yourself up for the future. Everything you're doing now is preparing yourself for the future, whether it's good or bad. A lack of action or a lack of awareness of what you're doing now will lead to a more negative future, but good intentionality with what you're doing now is going to set you up pretty well for the future. So that being said, this is episode 101 of Inside the Mirror podcast. I love you guys. Thanks for sticking around. The future is bright. Make it bright. Do what you can today. Set yourself up for tomorrow. With that being said, I'm out of here. Adios.